Well, the new Hobbit movie's coming out soon, so I decided to revisit some of the old Lord of the Rings games that I remember playing when the trilogy came out. I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan myself. I even have a Gandalf costume I've worn for Halloween, but I have to say, I'm a little nervous about the upcoming Hobbit film. I watched the second trailer, and it had an almost slapstick ending, which felt incredibly wrong to me. When I think of The Hobbit, I think of an epic adventure full of magic and wonder. The novel and the Rankin Bass cartoon captured that so well, but the trailer hasn't really given me that sense at all. Another thing, the Lord of the Rings trilogy was 3 books, which is why it made sense to make it 3 films. But over here we have The Hobbit, 1 book. So why does it have to be divided into 3 films? Isn't that overkill? Like I said though, I am a huge fan of the books and the Rings trilogy. I just hope that the Hobbit movie doesn't turn into this decade's Phantom Menace. But anyway, let's talk about the video games. There were 3 Lord of the Rings games for the GameCube. 2 of them are based on the movies, The Two Towers and The Return of the King. And then there's one called The Third Age, which takes place on Middle-earth, but that one's sort of its own thing and strays away from the movies. There was also a Hobbit game for the GameCube that had nothing to do with the movies at all. So for right now, I just want to talk about the ones that are based on the Peter Jackson films that we all know. The plot of this first game is actually a combination of the first 2 movies. Even though it's just called The Two Towers, you go through all the stuff that happens in the Fellowship of the Rings as well. It really should have told people on the box that it included elements from the first movie as well, because it makes you wonder what happened to the first game. You can play as the Ranger, soon-to-be King Aragorn, the Elven Archer Legolas, or the comic relief axe-wielding dwarf Gimli. When the game starts, they show you clips from the movie, which you can't skip. It's a slightly pixelated recap of the movie, but then the movie footage turns into game footage where they throw you right into the action, and the transition is laughable. Why draw attention to the fact that the game doesn't look as good as real life? The Battle of Helm's Deep is a pain in the ass. You have to run all over the walls of the castle, kicking down the ladders so that the orcs can't get up. That's fine, but the other soldiers who are supposed to be helping you are standing there blocking your way. And this happens all throughout the game, on different stages. Come on, get out of the way! Move! Jeez. And what really pisses you off is the fact that none of them help you kick down the ladders. If everybody just focused on knocking down the ladders as a team, then this battle would be a lot easier. For example, you'll be all the way on the left side of the wall kicking down a ladder, and then you'll see a red square pop up on the other side, indicating that a new ladder just went up. Couldn't Gimli or somebody be standing on the other side kicking it down, instead of me having to run all the way over there? Thanks for the help, assholes. I can never seem to remember what the button combinations are for the moves. They tell you on screen when you buy them, but after that, it's up to you to remember. I like it so much better the way it was in Batman Arkham City. There, they remind you what the combo moves are with an on-screen instruction. And I know what you're thinking, that's why games come with instruction manuals. Well, you know what? I do have the instruction manual, and it does tell you the combo moves in there, but it's inconvenient to have to break out the book in the middle of playing the game. Again, it's so much better to have the combo reminder on screen. As you're fighting, sometimes the enemies drop a bottle of potion which you can use to revive your health. But sometimes they put the items in the background where your character can't reach it. Oh, you want that quiver of arrows? Well, you can't have it, asshole! Oh, and what happened here? I'm in the middle of a fight with this guy and he just disappears? Did he die while he was standing up, or did he just vanish? I will say that for the time, the graphics were decent. You can tell that effort went into them, even as far as having reflections in the puddles. And some of the characters look okay when they talk, but take a look at Gimli.
And my axe.
I played this game when it came out, and I can tell you, even at the time that this was released, that still looked like shit. So I got all the way up to the breached wall, but this part is ridiculous. You have to protect a door from being destroyed. A million orcs come running at you, and you have to keep them away from the door. You have to kill so many of them, it just goes on and on. Finally, I got through that, but then they bring out this catapult. You have to destroy the wood paneling on the sides of the catapult to defeat the stage, but it takes so long to break off the panels, by the time I get the first one cracked off, they've already broken through the door, so then you die. When they restart you, guess what? It's back to the start, with no checkpoint. It takes so fucking long to get to this part with the catapult that I'm not going to redo the entire thing over again. If they would just start you at the catapult when you die, I would gladly try this again, but screw fucking killing 5 billion orcs all over again. That's the biggest problem with this game. They didn't put in enough checkpoints, and it drives me crazy having to redo these areas which are just monotonous anyway. So that's pretty much it for the Two Towers GameCube game. But then, of course, there was still a game of the third film. Okay, so now here we have Lord of the Rings Return of the King for Nintendo GameCube. This game starts during the ending of the battle at Helm's Deep when Gandalf appears, so it's actually still during the Two Towers when you start out. There's a stage just like Helm's Deep in the Two Towers where you have to knock down ladders. This time it's atop the wall of Minas Tirith, the White City. It still has the issue of the soldiers getting in your way when you're trying to race around from side to side. You have to use catapults to take down the siege towers that are approaching, but finding the damn catapult isn't even easy. There's multiple sets of stairs leading up to towers. Some of them lead to nothing, and then there's another one that has the catapult up top. So first you need to play the level to memorize which stairs have the catapult and which ones are empty. It'd be pretty difficult to beat this the first time around since you don't know where anything is. What would have made this stage better is if the guide in the top right was more detailed. The red spots indicate enemy ladders, so why couldn't there be a white dot to show where Gandalf is, standing on the tower, and then have an orange dot or something to show where the catapult is? Just doing that would have made this less of a clusterfuck. The standout boss fight in the game is the battle against the King of the Dead. After you beat the Dead King, you'll have to escape the cave as it collapses. Legolas and Gimli just run ahead, leaving you on your own. If they're not busy blocking your path, getting in your way, then they're rushing ahead, leaving you to die. In the movie, they're your best friends. In the game, they're assholes. The camera angles in these games are really terrible. This was the GameCube, the system with Wind Waker. We know that it could do a 360-degree rotation, but these games were more concerned with making the scenery look like the movie than they were about user-friendly camera angles. Really, look at this terrible camera angle. I can't see anything. Sometimes the camera angles suck so much you'll end up walking into health when you might not want to take it yet. Look. What if I wanted to save that health a little longer? Well, I don't get the chance because the camera is fixed on its crappy angle. But the worst thing about this game is this one level where you have to stop these giant elephants and the Witch King. The first thing you have to do is defeat all 60 enemies. You can stay on the battlefield and fight it out if you want, but if you're having a hard time, I found a trick. I ran to an area up top near the catapults where there was a quiver of arrows that automatically replenishes. I just stood on top of it, and the way the camera is situated, every few seconds an enemy came by and I just fired a charged arrow and killed him. It's cheap, but it works if you're having a hard time otherwise. For the next part, these gigantic elephants approach the battlefield. The stage is laid out like this. There's a huge battlefield below, and then there's cliffs on either side. Each cliff has a path leading up. You can either hit the elephants with the catapults or with your arrows. Now, about these catapults, what sucks is you can only use each catapult one time, and it doesn't even take down the elephant in one shot if you hit them, so they're not very helpful at all. I found I had to stick with firing the arrows. As you're trying to shoot the elephants down, enemies come up and attack you, which is really annoying because you'll be trying to shoot your arrow and get continually interrupted. The next problem is there's these guys on the elephants shooting flaming arrows back at you. They shoot so many volleys of arrows, it makes it very hard to even get in any shots. That's annoying itself, but then combine it with the fact that the controls are terrible. You have to hit the L trigger on the GameCube controller to bring up your bow, then hit A to fire the arrow. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. It's like a volley of arrows will be shot from atop the elephant, then they take a few seconds to reload. So that's when I think it's my chance to land a hit on them, right? Just when I think I'm going to fire my arrow at them, Aragorn is now swinging his sword instead. It's like if you don't hold the trigger down long enough before you hit A, then he'll just swing his sword. But you're trying to do this at a lightning fast pace, so you don't have time to sit around waiting for him to slowly raise the bow. The unresponsive bow will make you want to rip your hair out. I wonder if the controls are better on the PlayStation version. In the meantime, you're getting attacked by enemies on the ground and losing health. And health doesn't even come easily. They only seem to give out health jars when you're extremely low on energy, and they don't give you much. Just a little red jar that only fills the meter slightly. If you want a lot of health, you have to go down to the battlefield and kill one of the enemies with a green meter above its head that take a bunch of hits. And there's absolutely no time to be doing that when you have to stop these elephants, because if they reach the end of the field, they'll run over your friends and the mission ends. So the entire thing is just awful. But wait, it gets worse. If you do defeat the first two elephants, it's not over. Now the Witch King comes in, and he's riding his Nazgul in the air. The Witch King is attacking your friends on the ground at the front of the battlefield, and you have to repel him by going down below him and shooting arrows. Just making it to him in time is hard, because you have to run across the entire battlefield that's full of 1 million enemies. By the time you get to him, he's already injured your friends, and then he flies off. You'll be lucky to get in 2 arrow shots before he just flies away. When he leaves, then more elephants come. Remember, like I said, there's 2 different cliffs, so the elephant could go to either one of them. And it shows an unskippable cinematic of the elephant coming each time, which is annoying, because in the middle of all this action, you don't want to wait. But then, after the cinematic is done, it throws you immediately back into the battle with no warning, where you're already being attacked. Also, when these elephants come in and they do that cinematic, the elephants are shown coming from the opposite direction. Then it cuts back to you and you're facing the other way. So it's confusing to figure out which cliff the elephant's gonna be on. If you run up the path of the wrong cliff, you end up losing a lot of time, and you have to try to hurry back to the other cliff. By the time you get there, the Witch King has returned, and you can't even go shoot him yet because you're still trying to take down the elephant. Not to mention, there's so much dust flying up from the ground, it's nearly impossible to even see anything. You might as well be blind with all this dust coming off the ground. This level is like having a burlap sack put over your head and being spun around on a swivel chair while being beaten by 500 wrestlers as a demon rapes your fucking family and friends that you just can't help. Yeah, it's hell. The game designers had to have done this on purpose just to piss people off. I did eventually beat this stupid fucking board, but it's not even worth it at this point. I'm so fucking frustrated. The gameplay is just so annoying that I just don't even want to play it anymore. What's a shame is, I was liking this better than the Two Towers game until this awful fucking stage came along. I really have to wonder how they let this pass and get released to the public. Did anybody realize what a frustrating mess this level was? I mean, really, how could they allow something like this to pass?
You shall not pass!